Hello and welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. Today is a very exciting day because I'm going to be announcing the winner of my giveaway. A couple of weeks ago I hit 1,000 subscribers, so I decided to give away one of my favourite books of 2016, which was I See You by Claire Mackintosh. And today I'm going to pick the winner of that book as well as answer all the questions that you guys asked me in order to enter the giveaway. I ended up getting quite a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and answer them all as quickly as possible so this video isn't like half an hour. But thank you so much to everyone who asked. I've printed out all of the comment sections here. So what I'm going to do is read out the questions and answers, cut them out as I go, put them into this bowl here, and then at the end I will randomly pick out one of the questions and whoever asked that question will win the book. Yeah? We're happy? Okay, let's do this. Question 1. 3 different people asked me variations of this question. Have you always been a reader or did you learn to love books at a certain age? And the answer to that is that I've always been a reader. I've always loved it. My parents tell me that I taught myself to read when I was 3 years old, and I honestly don't think I've stopped since. Okay, that's the first 3 into the bowl. Another one that quite a lot of people asked me, what were your favourite books as a child? So for that one I would have to say the Enid Blyton books. She wrote like the famous 5, those are her most famous ones. Also the Malory Towers books, which are based at boarding school, and I was so desperate to go to boarding school, which I eventually did, and it was just like Malory Towers. Yeah, anything by Enid Blyton I read a lot of as a child. I got a couple of questions about which books I reread the most often. I've read Sense and Sensibility about 5 times probably. I've definitely read Ella Enchanted a lot of times because I read that all through my childhood and I've reread it as an adult a few times. A related question is, if you could only reread for the rest of your life, which 5 books would you choose? That's hard. That's basically like Desert Island books. So I would say, obviously I would pick Ella Enchanted and Sense and Sensibility because obviously I haven't got bored of them so far, so I don't think I will. And then, what else would I pick? I think I would take Time Traveler's Wife. That's one I should have mentioned for the last question as well. I've reread that a lot and I love it. I would want something funny for my light relief, so maybe like an Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging or one of those books I would like. And then I think Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh. I adore that book, so that would be my 5th. I love this question. Do you recommend books to strangers when you are out and about? If you mean like random strangers on the street, then no, I don't just stop people and recommend books. But if you mean like get into a conversation with somebody and then recommend something, then yeah, I do that. And the second part was, if yes, what book do you recommend the most? Lately, I've been recommending Louise O'Neill to so many people. And it's because I'm doing a dissertation on young adult books at the moment. So it's like, I have YA on the brain. I've been recommending asking for it to a lot of people lately. If you could put yourself into the plot of a book, which would it be? There's a book that I read as a child, I haven't read it for years, called Inkheart. I don't remember the plot, but I remember that characters come to life out of the book. And I remember being really jealous of the main character that she could make characters come to life. So maybe I would put myself into that, and then I could bring so many of my favourite characters to life, and that would be lovely. Have you ever been inspired to travel somewhere by a book? It's funny, yes and no. When I first read that, I was thinking that, yeah, I must have loads of answers. But actually, it's not so much that I'm inspired to travel somewhere from a book, it's that I read about the places that I'm interested in, and then I would also like to travel there. Does that make sense? If you were to have a cocktail party, which 4 fictional characters would you invite? At my cocktail party, I would like both Adam and Nina from Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh. If you haven't read that book, you might have seen Bright Young Things is the movie version. I just want to hear their like posh accents. I want to hear them saying that they're just so frightfully bored at my cocktail party, and I'd love them to be there. And then to make up for them being frightfully bored, I would like to have Ginny Weasley, and she would not bring her husband Harry because he's frightfully boring. Oh, and I know who I'd have, but I can't remember her name. In Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, the old lady in the retirement home who narrates the story of everything that happened. But she's like this really cool, chill old lady in a retirement home who's like had this amazing life and knew all these amazing people, and she'd kind of regale everybody with her stories. I think that would be a fun cocktail party. A little bit of a weird mix of people, but we'd make it work. And then related to that, how about which author would you invite for dinner? I would have to invite Jane Austen. I think she would be so fascinating to talk to. We would just kind of talk about the ridiculousness of society together and just have a great time. And probably make fun of everyone that we knew. Is there an author whose entire works you've read or want to read? Yes, I have read all of Jane Austen's books, all of the finished books. I haven't read the uncompleted ones, but I would like to. What is your least favourite genre and why? I am not really a fan of sci-fi fantasy in general. I mean, I like Harry Potter and I do like a few magical books, but in general, my problem with kind of magical fantasy books is that they are never fully going to have a set of rules that make sense, no matter how carefully you think them through. So like Harry Potter is a really, really good example because J.K. Rowling thought that world through so much, and that's wonderful, but ultimately it is still magic that she made up, so she does have an easy way out of situations. She can just say that there's this spell that's perfect for this situation, and then they use the spell and get out, but it's not as exciting and clever to me as when an author has to really figure out how the characters possibly actually could get themselves out of the situation. How do you cope with reading books that make you uncomfortable? Have you always been quite open to that, or is it something you've learned to deal with over time? That's interesting. I guess it depends on what you mean by reading books that make me uncomfortable. I love to read books that make me uncomfortable in terms of making me question my assumptions on things. I've always liked doing that, really, because I think it's important. I've always liked kind of learning and debating and like growing my ideas and stuff, so I like that. But if you mean like make me uncomfortable as in it's uncomfortable situations that I don't enjoy reading about, then I don't cope, to be honest. If something's really like gory or violent or any of that kind of discomfort, I don't cope. I tend to just not read that book. So maybe I should learn to push myself a bit, but also maybe just write less gross books. Which book is your least favourite of all time? Okay, so I can continue on from that last question with this one. My least favourite book of all time is American Psycho. And I know people are going to tell me, because people always do, like what a great book it is and what amazing literary merit it has, but I don't care. It is fucking disgusting. I was reading it on the way into work one morning, feeling just like sick to my stomach with how disgusting it was, and then I arrived at work and one of my colleagues looked at me and was like, "Oh my god, are you alright? You're totally green." And I was not having it. So that's my least favourite book of all time. I also hate his other book that I've read, Less Than Zero. That's probably my second least favourite book of all time as well. What is the creepiest book you've ever read? Okay, so creepy I do like creepy. I would say one of the creepiest books I've ever read was probably We Need to Talk About Kevin. It was fantastic, I loved it, but it creeped me out so much. Also, there was a book I read once, I can't remember what it was called or what it was about or anything, but I think it was narrated by Death. It's not The Book Thief. It was narrated by Death, and at the beginning, Death is like, I can see a lot of things from up here. For example, I can see a boy called Dan. Let's call him Dan. And then the whole story is about Dan's like narrow escapes from Death as Death is trying to get him, and then finally at the end Death catches up and kills Dan. And then it finishes with Death being like, I can see a lot of things from up here. For example, I can see you. And I full on threw the book across the room because I was so scared. I was like 9 at the time. Why would you put that into a children's book? It was terrifying. What is your favourite banned book? I actually am not very good at knowing which books have been banned. I feel like I remember hearing that Perks of Being a Wallflower was banned. I don't know if I'm making that up, but I love that book. What are your views on audiobooks? Well, I shall tell you. My views on audiobooks are that they exist. I have never really got into them, I've never really listened to them, but I'd like to change that. They just need to be less bloody expensive. What's your favourite book that was originally written in a language other than English? That one has to be The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out of a Window and Disappeared. That book is hilarious, I love it so much, and it was originally written in Swedish. Are you a fan of classics? If so, what is your favourite classic? Yes, I am a big fan of Jane Austen, so my favourite would be all of them. How do you feel about breaking a book's spine or dog-earing pages? I have changed my mind a lot on this in recent months. I used to be very pro do whatever the fuck you want to your books, and I still am. So dog-eat your pages, break the spines, throw drinks on them, whatever you want, I think that's lovely. But I personally have completely stopped doing that. And it's probably because of BookTube. It's probably because I've become very proud of my book collection and showing them off, and all the other BookTubers have these really pristine copies that I'm now obsessively like, use a bookmark, do not fold the pages, gotta keep my books looking nice. It's probably a phase. It'll probably pass. Some of my favourite books on here, the pages literally fall out when you open them because the spine's so broken, which is massively inconvenient, but is also delightful because it reminds me of how much I've loved these books over the years. How do you go about organising your shelf? I change it up a lot. At the moment, I have one shelf for all of my just general fiction, and it's organised alphabetically, and then I have separate shelves for YA books, for LGBTQI plus YA books, for magical YA books, for books written post 1900, for domestic thrillers, they have their own section because I have so many. I have a Harry Potter shelf, and then I have a non-fiction section and a graphic novels shelf. What is your favourite book cover on your shelf? It's this one, Vile Bodies. I just love this cover so much. I think it sums up the book so well. I love this colour. Just think it's gorgeous. Who are your favourite book couple? Probably Celie and Shug from The Colour Purple. I really like their relationship. Ella and Char from Ella Enchanted. And most recently, I can't say because it's going to be a spoiler, In History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera, which I just read. If you've read it, you will understand there is a hint of a couple starting at the end with a character who I loved so much. So yeah, they would be my favourite couple that I read recently. I got a question on favourite poet, and I'm sorry to say I don't read poetry really ever at all. I have a favourite poem, Having a Coke With You by Frank O'Hara, which I really, really love. Give me recommendations, poetry for beginners please, because I really struggle with poetry for some reason. How do you pick your books to read? At the moment I just get so many recommendations from BookTube, and also from writing for Bustle and reading a lot of the articles that other people are writing. I just see a lot of what's coming out, so I don't have to do any looking. I'm just getting showered with recommendations of books that I want to read. Do you have any favourite bookish goodies? I don't really own anything myself, to be honest, so no. I think I would like a candle. I've seen like a candle that smells like old books. That would probably be my favourite. Which books have had the greatest impact on your life? That's a big question. I think that the book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, genuinely changed my life, which is so cliche, but I really think it did. I read it at the exact right moment of my life when I needed it, and it just was everything that I needed to hear, and it kind of made sense of all of the confusion that I was feeling at that time in my life. So that one had a huge impact. Do you judge a book by its cover? Yeah, I do. Of course I do. There is a book at the moment, The Essex Serpent, which has the most beautiful cover I've ever seen. And I've read the description of it and been like, meh, like that's not really my kind of thing, I'm not really interested. But I still keep looking at it and wanting to buy it just for the cover. So yeah, I'm probably more influenced by covers than I should be, but I think you have to judge a book by a cover to a certain extent. What is your most anticipated book release in 2017? Oh, so many. There's so many books coming out this year that I really want to read. One that I'm so psyched for though is Gabby Dunn and Alison Raskin, who have a YouTube channel called Just Between Us, and I adore them. They are writing a YA book called I Hate Everyone But You, and it's going to be hilarious because they're so good, and I love the stuff that they talk about on their channel, and if they're going to put that into a YA novel, that's, you know, everything that I think YA novels should be. Hint, hint, Gabby and Alison, send me a proof copy. Oh, Jesus, so many questions. What is your favourite underhyped book? You know, I didn't hear very much hype for None of the Above by I.W. Gregorio. That's a YA novel that came out pretty recently, and it's about an intersex high school girl, and I thought it was brilliant, and I didn't really hear any hype about it, so I'm going to say that one. What is your favourite book ever? And she's put, you can only pick one, I like to be difficult. Well, that's bloody hard, so thanks for that. My favourite book ever is probably Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh. I fell so head over heels in love with that book. It's bloody great. You should all read it. What was the last book you read? The last book I read was Kissing the Witch by Emma Donoghue. It's a collection of fairy tale retellings, and I really liked the way that she connected all of the different fairy tales together into one universe. That was really cool. I feel like I need a breather. That was so many questions. What do you hate about BookTube? Controversial question. I don't hate anything about BookTube. I sometimes get frustrated at the fact that YA fantasy is like by far the biggest genre on BookTube, and it's not one that I read, but I don't hate that. I think it's great that they have a genre that they love. So no, I refuse. I won't be baited. I love this community. I think it's grand. How did you come up with the name for your channel? Just got interrupted because the doorbell rang and it was the postman with my new jumper! I wish this had arrived yesterday in time for Women's Day, but yeah, I do think your sexist jokes are boring. I've forgotten where I was now. Oh yeah, how did you come up with the name for your channel? I can't remember how I came up with it, but I've always loved a good pun. I actually think I came up with the name first, it just kind of popped into my head, and then I was like, oh well, I should probably drink while I film. I think it was that way around rather than the opposite. What are your tips for being clear and affluent when it comes to speaking to your camera? I cut so much out. I say a lot of ums, I stumble over my words all the time, and I have to restart the sentences, so the answer is with a lot of editing. Would you rather lose all your subscribers or your videos? I would rather lose all my subscribers because I like my videos. There's something that I feel proud of because I made them and I put a few hours into them. Sometimes I rewatch them just to be like, I made that, that was cool. So I would be really sad if I actually lost the videos. I'd be sad if I lost all my subscribers as well, but you know, the videos themselves are They're little memories in a way, so I wouldn't want to lose them. What's the best thing that happened to you because you became a booktuber? I've really loved getting the chance to read books and review books that people send me because I have a channel. That's been amazing because I've got a chance to read books that I maybe wouldn't have picked up, and some of them have become kind of new favourites. So that's been really great. Also, I just love when somebody says they read a book that I recommended and that they really enjoyed it. I think that's a really nice feeling that I get. Do you have any favourite YouTuber not from BookTube? Oh, so many. I love Gabby and Alison, I mentioned them earlier. I love Dodie Clark, and of course like Grace Helbig, Hannah Hart, Mamrie Hart, I love them. There's so many. YouTube's a great place. Okay, the lighting in here has probably totally changed because it's been like 2 hours since a second ago when you saw me. My camera ran out because I've been filming for that long, so I had to charge it all the way up, and now I'm here continuing with my questions. I got a couple of questions asking me what is your favourite drink reading combination, and surprise surprise, my favourite thing to drink when I'm reading is wine, but I would say second place is hot chocolate. Do you prefer red or white? I love a good white wine. And I got 2 questions asking me what my favourite wine is. You know, I'm not fussy. If it's wine, I'm drinking it. I like a Sauvignon Blanc. That's what I always ask for at restaurants, so let's go with that. What was your favourite drink before it was ruined? And then they put in their example that they used to drink vodka sodas and now the smell makes them cringe in hangover agony. Well, I'll tell you what, if I had to stop drinking everything that ever gave me a hangover, I would never drink anything. What is your absolute favourite cocktail? I like cocktails that aren't too sweet. I don't like anything that's really sugary. Something with gin is a good start. I don't know, I don't have like a signature cocktail. I feel like I should get one. And then, is there a drink that reminds you of a book in particular? To be honest, no, and I wish I had a more interesting answer for that really interesting question. Okay, we're nearly there. We're now onto the last section, which is questions about me. So the first one is, can you tell us about your feminist awakening? Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give you the brief version, otherwise that'll be a long story, but it was kind of embarrassingly late, to be honest. I wasn't very feminist growing up. I mean, I definitely got annoyed at sexism at certain points, but I think a lot of things I just didn't notice that they were sexist. It was actually my 3rd year of university when I did a module on gender in general, and I just was absolutely fascinated. I thought it was so interesting, and me and my friend on the course suddenly like came home, and all of the guys in our flat, we were like, "You're oppressing us, stop it." I've moved on a little bit from that straightforward of an interpretation. And even from then, it did take me a few years before I stopped thinking of myself as like a equalist or a humanist and became a feminist. So it's been a long and ongoing journey that I am still on. Did you have any pets when you were growing up? Yes, we have always had dogs as a family, and I had a little white albino rabbit called Snowman. Oh, and I also had fish. My friends once bought me a fish for my birthday. It was a Siamese fighting fish, the ones that like flare up when they see themselves in the mirror, and then my mum tried to help me change the water in the tank and she flushed it down the sink. So that was really sad. Then she bought me another one, and that lived for a nice amount of time and then it died. I got a couple of questions on what I do for a living. At the moment, I am a student, so I don't do anything except for writing for Bustle in their books department. Before that, I was working in publishing as an editor, which I loved, and I definitely would like to go back into publishing, possibly as a literary agent or a books publicist or something in that realm. Are you studying something publishing related? No, I'm doing women's studies, a master's in women's studies, but I am doing a literature angle on it, so I'm hoping it is going to be useful for getting a job after I graduate. How long have you been married, and what does your significant other do for a living? I've been married for coming up 3 years now, was a very young bride, and my husband works in a brewery. If your life was turned into a movie, who do you think could best portray you? Oh god, I don't know who could best portray me. I know people that I'd like to portray me. I always used to think that I wanted Alexis Bledel to play me in the movie of my life, because I thought she was so pretty. If you wrote a memoir, what would its title be? I came up with the name of my memoir a long time ago because of a specific incident that happened to me, and I felt just kind of summed up the type of person that I am and the type of shit that happens to me. And then finally, we're on the last question. Do you have any plans to write a book? Oh, you know what? I would love to write a book. As a child, I always thought that I was going to be an author. That was just my career path. I was going to be an author, and I used to write all the time. Lately, I just haven't been writing. I mean, I write For Bustled, I write like articles. I haven't been writing fiction at home, and I'd really like to get back into it because I used to love it. And I know what I want to write about. I've got the story, I've got the characters, I've got the setting, so I need to just sit myself down and write it. Okay, now we're on to the exciting bit, the bit you've just sat through half an hour of questions to actually get to. I'm going to pick somebody from this bowl to win my copy of I See You. So first I need to do a really good mix so that the people at the bottom aren't just going to get ignored. Hang on a minute. Okay, I have tossed that like a salad. Oh, one fell out. Okay. So now I'm just going to shut my eyes and pick one. The person to win my giveaway is Lamesha Hale. This was the person who asked how I organise my shelf. I liked that question, so thank you so much for asking it. Congratulations, Lamesha Hale. I will try and get in contact with you now. If you're watching this, leave me a comment and let me know how best to get in touch with you. Otherwise, I will just be chasing you around the internet. I will find you somehow. And you won this, so hooray! I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Okay, so that was about 4 hours of my afternoon I just spent doing that. That was so many questions. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up or comment below if you liked it. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I make new videos every Thursday and Friday and other random days as well. See you next time. Yeah, Amma.